Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of Tradecraft Solutions. And in this episode, I'm going to be fulfilling a promise I made to the KPLUG Linux user group, who was kind enough to have me do a presentation for them on how to do screencasts, or how I do screencasts in Linux. And I promised that I would cover in more detail some of the things I touched at that presentation on YouTube, so here we are. What you see here is ffmpeg running. It's my preferred screen capture program. For this video, I'm going to concentrate just on doing a straight kind of how-to tutorial screencast where you're showing someone how to do something on the computer. In later videos, we will get into how to mix that with live action video and how to use Kdenlive for that. First thing I want to point out is these little buttons up here. I just made these in Inkscape, and all they are, if you right-click here in KDE, you go to Edit Applications, and it's going to take a while since I'm doing a screencast. Here in Multimedia, if we expand this, this is the command I'm using to start ffmpeg and record sound and video as a screen capture. I will have this command in the description below for this video. I also make sure that I run it in the terminal. And then this green one just is killall ffmpeg, and I just add those to this empty panel that I put on the desktop in KDE. Now, you can do this sort of thing either with a panel or with a dock in all the other desktops, but since KDE is the one I use, that's the one I'm showing you how I do it in, but that's how I do that. So up here I've got Audacity, ffmpeg, the two start and stop buttons, and Kdenlive. Those are the programs that I use most of the time for doing screencasts. The other program that I talked about at the presentation was VocoScreen, which I'm going to go over here just one more time. This tab here, this last tab, is just the one that shows you how to get to the online resources. It's a very simple GUI program to use, does exactly what I'm doing in ffmpeg. It's just that it does it with a GUI front end. In fact, you will find that it uses ffmpeg as its back end. So you're using ffmpeg either way. One just has a GUI set of controls on it. And you can select what area of the screen is recorded. The display size got a cool little magnification feature, so you can point people's attention right where you want it. You set your audio settings here, supports both Pulse and ALSA. In this list will appear all of the devices, the audio recording devices you have hooked up, including the monitor of the built-in audio stereo, analog stereo. If you're doing gameplay and you're recording like how you play Assassin's Creed or something like that, then you would click on this one to monitor that audio stream. Next tab here is where you set your frame rate, video codec, and audio codec, and what format you're going to have the file saved to. By default, it uses Matroska. And this is where we set up the tab for the webcam here. It does it's showing the output down here, right there, of my webcam in this really horribly lit room. You see the nice little hotspot on the top of my forehead there. But I personally don't like this style of screencast. You can do it if you want to, but I prefer without this. And all you have to do to do that is just turn this off and it goes away. But that's basically VocoScreen. After you have all that set up, you click Start, you're doing a screencast, and you click Stop when you're done. And that's how that works. So I'm going to close this right now. So when I do a screencast, I kind of go through a little bit of a process that I have been developing to kind of keep myself from rambling too much. And that process starts with an outline, and it's usually a very basic outline. You can see it right here. I just do it in LibreOffice. I'm not going to go through the business of setting up styles or anything else in LibreOffice. I'm pretty sure most of you can do that, and the defaults are fine. I start with basically just these headings. They don't become headings until the second draft, but I start with these headings, just basically going down what I want to cover so that I get that down. And then I do a I open up ffmpeg just using laptop sound. I don't use the two-system sound yet. These are throwaway takes that I'm doing just to get the outline fleshed out. And then I will go down and take notes as I go. And all of these notes will then get put into their appropriate heading. And you'll notice that I'm basically just using keywords and reminders. I want to avoid a lot of detail because too much detail in a script or a outline becomes stilted and hard to follow, and it's the opposite problem of you don't have enough detail where you wind up rambling and getting out of focus and all of that. You want to try to find a balance there. So this is as close as I can get to explaining how I do this. I do a couple of runs through the screencast, first with just the headings, then I take notes as I do that. I then put those notes under their respective headings and clean that up a little bit, do the screencast again just using laptop sound. Then I come up with basically the second draft or the third draft of the outline, and that's usually the one that becomes what I call the shooting script. And once I do that, I then set up the Zoom H2, and I set that to do my two-system sound. And then once I have the sound and video I want, I then import those all three. I usually do 3 takes of each screencast, and I import all 3 takes into Kdenlive for editing. I import the sound files from the Zoom to Audacity and clean those up. So we're going to go through that process in much more detail and go over the tools that I use for that. So we'll minimize this momentarily. So the first thing, let's talk about the hardware I use. I use a Zoom H2N. This is the price on Amazon for this plus the accessory pack. The Zoom H1 is about $100 less for a article that does not quite as much as the Zoom H2N, but it will work just fine for this sort of application. The other thing is the microphone I'm using right now is the MOVO GM100 lavalier clip-on that is meant for the GoPro. This is about $20 on Amazon. There are many similar mics for prices ranging from about $20 to about $60. They all do about the same thing. I recommend checking the frequency response. It's going to be in the 20 to 20,000 hertz range. They're fine for basic vocal narration. I wouldn't want to use them to advance your singing career if I were you. That is the hardware that I use. And now to do the actual recording, or to do the actual recording, I record using ffmpeg, as you see, and that creates my video files in my home directory. Once I am finished doing the take, I will then import the sound files into Audacity. Now, when I'm doing the recording, I set the record level on the Zoom and the record level on the microphone going into the laptop at minus 12 dB, or averaging about that. That gets you a good sound without a lot of clipping, and it avoids some work in post. Once I have both the video and sound record, the raw recording, the 3 takes, I will then open up Audacity and import the files from the Zoom H1. So for that, we go File and Import Audio. And I'm going to use the unedited Zoom WAV file that gets prepared or created by the Zoom. And the Audacity automatically creates a copy. And here is the file itself. I'm going to go Control-1 to zoom in a little bit. Here is the spike. What I recommend you do is you start your recording and clap your hands real loud. Make sure you're recording with your laptop and the Zoom so that both microphones will pick up the clap, and that creates this spike that you can use to line up and synchronize your sound later on. This bit here was where I cleared my throat. This section here is room noise. I roll about 15 or 20 seconds of room noise every time I do a recording to give myself a noise profile in Audacity to do the noise reduction, which is the first effect I always apply. You click Effect, you click Noise Reduction, click Get Noise Profile, which tells Audacity what to look for in terms of noise, and then double-click the tracks, and that'll select the entire thing, and then go Effect, Noise Reduction again. The thing with noise reduction is you want to keep this as little as possible. I started about 30. It sounded a little warbly after I finished applying the effect, so I did Control-Z to get rid of it, and then moved it down to 25. The 25 is how aggressively it reduces the noise. In this case, it's reducing it by 25 decibels. Sensitivity is the decibel level below which noise is not reduced. And I find that these numbers for this room work very well. And if we click OK, It'll go through and fix this. I can't play the sound here for you because the Zoom will not be picking up the recording, but if you ever try this, I guarantee you, if you do it with the noise and then without, I guarantee you'll see immediate and noticeable improvement in just about every microphone you use, particularly small microphones like the Zoom or the Tascam, which is another competitor to the Zoom. They have very small microphone capsules, and those have an inherently higher noise floor on them. The bigger microphones like the Rode mic and the Sennheiser microphones have a bigger capsule, a condenser capsule to collect the sound, and they have a much lower noise floor. Anyway, you see here that the noise is now gone, and if I play this, you won't be able to hear this, but I've played this before, I've heard it, and believe me, that sounds a lot less scratchy. The next effect I apply, I'm going to double-click again to select the whole track, is normalization. Normalization essentially makes everything come to the same volume. And I'm going to just do the straight normalization to -1 dB, and we'll do that. And that one goes a little bit faster. I had to fade in and fade out on the last one because it took over a minute. And now you'll see we have a little, this makes the echoes a little less prominent. The other thing you can do to kind of help with the echoes and kind of make my voice sound a little better in this really high reverb room is the compressor, which is the dynamic range compressor. This kind of reduces the loud stuff. It reduces the loud stuff and makes the soft stuff a little louder so that everything kind of comes a little better. But if I set these settings here and I do this, these are the settings I use for this room and this mic. It will vary. A lot of these settings on these effects will depend on the microphone you use and the room you use it in. So keep that in mind. So I click OK, and it's going to take a minute or two to do the compressor there. All right, and when I play that, it does actually make a pretty big difference in how smooth the recording sounds. You can actually apply this effect one more time. I sometimes will do it twice to get that everything really even. Usually once is enough. Again, depends on your voice, depends on the room, depends on other factors. If you don't like any of the effects, all you have to do is you can either click Edit and Undo, or you can do, of course, as it shows here, Control Z. So there you have that. That's how I clean up the sound. That's pretty much all I ever have to do. There are other effects I can apply, but those are the three that I normally do apply. And one thing here, if you go to Audacity and you're looking for all the plugins, by default, the Linux version comes with pretty much all of them installed, but you may not see them all. If you do not, click on Manage, and if you see any of these either with none or disabled, just click Select All and Enable, and all of a sudden they'll show up and they'll all be there. So that's a little tidbit there that I discovered from much frustration. So anyway, that's how I clean up the sound, and we're going to close this, and I will not be saving it because I already did this for the previous video. This is for the video on how I created the front fork section on the ships and the arrival, the animation video I did on YouTube. So now that I have my sound cleaned up and I have my video with the scratch track, the next thing I want to do is edit all that together. So I open up Kdenlive. Okay, and Kdenlive, we're going to go to the project tree here like that. Kdenlive, these are your video tracks, these are your audio tracks, and I am going to just do, let's go add clip, go project, add clip. So here is the raw video, and this video I was able to do with just one take, or actually, no, I did more than one take on this, and I think I just threw out the old take, so I've only got one take left. But if you had more than one take, you would import them all into Kdenlive, but I'm just going to do this one. And you just drag and drop. It's telling me that my frame per second rate doesn't match the default profile I set up earlier. Just click OK, doesn't matter, Kdenlive can deal with it. And then we're going to take my edited sound file, that's the one I cleaned up in Audacity, drag that in there too, and then click Cancel. And then I'm going to click this, And you can play this here and monitor the clip over here, or you can take this down in here into the project section, and you'll be on the project monitor tab and monitor it that way. I'm also going to drag the sound file, and you see the clips here. So the first thing we want to do is sync up that sound. I'm going to zoom in a little bit down here to get a better view of this, and I want to take, actually we'll zoom in just a little bit more, like that, and we will take this up. There we are. Now I want this to go right there, and then we'll grab the Audacity, the edited file here, like so, and let's go ahead and zoom back out here. And we'll take this over here and give that a play. All right, that's a little off. Go ahead and zoom in a little bit here. Yeah, it's a little bit not quite right there. So pop that there. Zoom that back out, and we will play this. Okay, that actually sounded better the other way, so we will move it back. And that's basically how you do this. You get this till it sounds like one person talking when both tracks are playing. And so we'll go back here, and I will just do a Control-Z and undo that. There we go, and that actually, see? All right, and one of the things you can do that will just, there we go, and we mute that second track just to see how it sounds. And it sounded okay there. You can't hear it because I'm not recording this through the Zoom, but there you have it. Now, that takes care of syncing up the sound. The next thing we want to do is get rid of this scratch track. We don't need it anymore, so right-click on the video, click Split Audio. That brings the audio into its own separate audio track. And this here is some static that my mic picked up, or that it was picking up some static from the laptop there. That's why they appear to be off, but they're actually not. They sync up perfectly when they're like this. So with that, we want to get rid of this. So before we can get rid of this, though, these things, the video and audio, are grouped as a single object in Kdenlive. So we want to right-click and ungroup them first. Now they're no longer the highlight between them. Select the scratch track here and right-click and delete it. Then we want to group the video with the clean track. So left-click to select this, and then hold the Control key down and left-click to select the clean audio, right-click and group clips. And now anything we do to the audio or video will be done to the other track. Whatever we do to one gets done to the other. We can go ahead and unmute this because there's no audio there anymore. So now that we have our audio synced, it's time to actually start editing video. Now, if you had more than one video take and one sound take, you would do that with all of them in here, and then you could edit the various bits, the best of each, into a single piece and throw away the rest. And that's pretty easy to do, but I'm going to just show you the basic steps, the basic tasks you would need to perform to do that. So first off, we have the lead-in bit here where I had my room noise and my hand clapping, and I think I cleared my throat here. And so I'm going to take a little bit before the talking starts here. You select the video, Shift-R, and then you select the video again. Make sure it's highlighted in red, and then hit delete to get rid of it. And you can now bring this back to the beginning, and now your video starts there. The other thing I like to do is add a fade from black effect to this. So with this video selected, I'm going to select my effect list, go to fade, And I'm going to do fade from black, just drag that right down here to add that in. And if you move your mouse over here, there'll be a little green dot that shows up. Honest there will. There it is. And you can adjust how long the fade takes. I usually keep it pretty short. You know, we just as I'm saying hi, the thing fades in. And so that's that. And then at the very end, you will have a similar thing going on. Let's go ahead and zoom out a little bit so we don't have to drag as much. There we go. And at the end, the audio kind of trails off past the video. Let's put our cursor right at the end there. And let's use the arrow keys to make sure we are... that first black frame there. We'll select the audio, Shift R, select the audio again, and hit delete select. Actually, we want to make sure that's selected there. There we go. And that selects the tail end of the audio and deletes it. You can then go to your effect list and add a fade to black and just drag that onto this clip here. And we'll go ahead and zoom in a little bit so we can see what we got to grab and move that out a little bit there. And that now, when you play this, what that does is it'll just do a nice little sort of fade to black like that. And then if you go back to the beginning, it fades in right before I start talking. So now if we click this, put this there, move it all the way very to the beginning here, and so it just creates a nice professional little fade in there. I would probably have that fade in a little sooner on the actual video, but there you go. And if you have multiple takes that you're editing together, let me go ahead and make a couple cuts in here just to show you how that would work. We have a fade to black and a fade from black left on this here, so let's get rid of that on the clip here, because we don't want that on that piece right there. We're assuming this is a different take, or a piece from a different take. And let's go ahead and grab this again, do Shift, move the cursor again, do Shift R. And if I wanted to do something like fade, it's called a dissolve transition here. So if I do this, if I put my cursor right here, right, that shortens the clip. But if I put it right there, if I go to the transition tab here, there's a little green arrow that shows up, and then if I click that, I get a dissolve. And what that does is it'll fade this one into this one over that, the time of the overlap. So if I put my cursor right there, I'm going to mute the audio here because I haven't fixed the audio to do this, but I just want to show you what the video effect is. This is that, which you can't see because nothing changed. Hang on a moment. Let's do a Control-Z. Forgot that you have to have something change, and nothing on the screen changed for this. So let's take this one and do that. Okay, we'll do this, and we will keep the audio muted on the first one just so we don't have multiple tracks talking at the same time. And we'll put there, we've got the dissolve right there. And now we'll put the cursor right over here, press play, and you'll see it dissolves into the second clip there. So if you're editing multiple clips together, there are a number of transitions you can do in this. You've got a whole list of them here. So play with those, and you can do with track auto, and you can tell it which one to fade to or from, which is cool, or to fade to black if you want to do that. So any way you do this is up to you, but that's all those capabilities are there in Kdenlive, and I assure you that they are useful, powerful, and I encourage you to play with them. Okay, now you're seeing here the final edit of the original video after I'd gone through and done all the cuts. This is the one that actually got published to YouTube. So you see I've got a lot of cuts. I didn't do any fades or dissolves on it because I didn't really need to. But after you're done editing and have everything the way you want it, you need to render it to a file. And in Kdenlive, you just click this button right here and click Render. And that brings up your rendering menu. The destination I do is always file rendering. You have a couple of other options here for specific media players, or if you're going, there actually is a destination for websites, which works really, really well. If you click on that, you'll see that it's got a bunch of different formats, WebM, Theora, all of that. I just go to file rendering because it gives me the ability to pick more things later on or do more things later on with the file once I'm done. I usually select MP4 with H.264 high profile format, and it's going to render this thing to 720. I normally just take the defaults. You can mess with threads and all the rest of it, but I normally set the video quality to high. I leave the audio bitrate where it is because that's plenty good enough for most circumstances. And all of the defaults I take here. This is the job queue. We'll look at that in a minute. And once you start the job, you can tell it to generate an ffmpeg script. So if you want to actually run this in a script using ffmpeg from the command line, it'll give you the ffmpeg command line you need to render that job. The next step is to click Render to File. And once you click, I'm not going to do that because I've already rendered this one. But once you click Render to File, it will go to the job queue and you'll see a progress bar and an estimated time to completion. And if you click Generate Script, it'll send it to that file right there. I'm not going to do that now, but it'll send you the script to get the ffmpeg command you need to do that render, which I think is kind of cool. It's a good way to actually learn how to do a lot of neat stuff in ffmpeg. More on that in another video. So anyway, you click Render and you wait for it to render the job. Then you have a finished file and it will give it whatever title you want. But there you have, I do it to 720, 60 FPS, and that is the sum total of what I do to create a screencast in Linux. So I hope anyone who was watching this found this useful. That's all I've got for you this time. I wish everyone a Merry Christmas or Christmas Hanukkah of whichever persuasion you adhere to. And I thank you all for watching. May the balance of your day and your holiday be awesome.